Hello, everybody! Welcome to Kevin Plays Disc Golf. Today we have a playthrough and course review of Birch Park in Amherst, New Hampshire. My name is Kevin, and I play disc golf. The main body for this video was filmed on September 15th, 2024 and September 28th, 2024. To get to the course from Route 101, if you're coming from the east, you're going to want to take the exit for Route 122 and Babusick Lake Road. When you get on the off-ramp, you're going to want to take a left, cross back over Route 101, and just after you go over Route 101, the parking lot will be on your right. If you're traveling east from Milford, you're going to want to take a right at the end of the off-ramp on 101, and it will be an immediate right turn into the dark parking lot. In general, the course is pretty easy to get to. When I played, the course was dry. It was a very dry summer, so if you're playing in the spring or summer, there's likely to be places that are wet or more marshy than they were at this time. All the baskets for this round were in the long tee location. A couple of other considerations here. Alcohol and tobacco are prohibited at this park. Trash is carry in and carry out. When I played, there was a porta potty on site in the parking lot, and dogs, unfortunately, are not allowed. Though disc golf is the primary use of this facility, there is a bike pump track at the front near the parking lot, so just be aware of that. It is completely separate from the disc golf course, however, so it shouldn't cause any issues there. I'll have my overall review of the course at the end of the video. Be sure to post your comments as to your thoughts of what looks fun and where you think the problem areas on the course might be, if there are any.
Alright, here we are at Birch Park Disc Golf Course and Bike Park. So if we take a look around, we can see there's a fairly large parking lot. There is a little shack through the woods. And here we have the main board to start the course. There's a practice net and a practice basket right behind this main sign. I will say I am here on a Sunday morning about 1:30, and it does appear to be quite busy here today, so this is probably going to be in two parts. So to get to the first hole, as we continue down this path, we have a small little hut and trash can here. Right, so here at the start of the round, we have the Lost and Found shack. So there's a depository here and an option to open from the other side. Hole 18 pops out right across over there. So if you happen to find somebody's disc, just go and you can drop it off here before you head back home. Go straight up here. And here we have the tee pad for the first hole. Hole 1 is a 257-foot par 3, slightly downhill through the trees. You've got a couple options as to where to go. You can see the basket from the tee. Here it is between the trees sort of right straight ahead of us, the one growing up to the left, and then the one behind it going slightly to the right. In between those two is the basket for hole 1. Standing on the bridge looking back at the tee, and now if we turn around, we can see there is the hole just behind that sort of big set of rock walls there. I ended up somewhere down in that gully on my tee shot, so I'm pretty happy with that. Again, it does play downhill, so a little bit shorter than 257 is how it actually plays, but it's a good shot for at least a par on this. The rock wall does do a good job of making it so it's very difficult to get in there for a real close birdie shot. And we took our drop in for 3 to get to hole 2. Just go a little bit to the right of the basket and go up this little path. And here we are at the tee box for hole 2. Hole 2 is a 343-foot par 3, pretty much dead straight ahead. You can't see the basket from the tee. However, if you look at the rock on the side slope and aim to sort of the edge of the bushes, which is about halfway from the edge of the rock to the edge of the slope, that's the direction it is, pretty much straight ahead. The basket is up a little hill, up into the trees a little bit. So again, it's 343, but it does play long. So take a 3 here and be happy with it. Here we are next to the dirt mound on the left, and I am just off the trail to the right, and the basket is straight ahead of us just in the woods on top of the hill. So we took our 4 on hole 2, there's looking back at the road, to get to the hole 3, or the tee for hole 3. We can walk around this way. Be careful as we are walking up the fairway for 3 here. And a little bit safer to walk through the woods and come up this way. So as we come up here for hole 3, we can get to the crest of the hill and turn to the right. And again, be a little careful because this is the direction that the frisbees are being thrown, so you don't want to get hit by one here. Hole 3 is a 250-foot par 3. Narrow gap straight ahead. The basket kind of follows the line of tires. You can actually see the hole 3 basket as you're exiting hole 2. Hole 3 basket and hole 2 basket are fairly close to each other. I'm playing the long tees here. There's a short tee as well, which you will see if you're walking to the long tee. Here we are looking back at the tires, and you can sort of see the gap that you can come through there. It's a high gap, but there is a gap there. To get to hole 4, we can turn to our right, and the tee pad is right there. Hole 4 is a 313-foot par 3, slightly downhill, dogleg right. If we see that tree right in front of us, we want to go just to the right of that. We can actually see the basket from here. If you see the 2 trees that are a little bit closer, you can see the top of the band through there. I'll point this out in editing if you're standing on the left side of the tee pad. So I am way right of the hole, but I am not quite to the out of bounds marker. There is a fence along the right side that marks out of bounds, so that should be treated as such. I can't really see the basket from here, but it is somewhere up in that direction. If we step out here, back into the fairway, we can see the basket is pretty much straight ahead there, with not a whole lot behind it. So I took a 4 from where I was. So this is looking back up towards the tee. I've got the woods behind me, so we want to go up and to the right to get to hole 5. Again, be a little bit careful because you are walking back up the 4th fairway here. And we can continue on over here. Again, so just staying to the side. And come up through this little path here, and here we have the 5th tee. Hole 5 is a 249-foot par 3. You cannot see the pin from the tee, but if you go straight ahead and see those rocks, it is directly over those rocks, probably about 60 or 70 feet past it, up in the woods. There is an option to go right here. If you prefer to go around the rocks rather than over them, but both are options here. Here we are at the rock wall. You can see the pin is actually tucked behind the trees there, so it's a little bit left of this big center rock, and it's a very narrow gap to get there. So we took our 3 on hole 5. One thing to note is that this course does have the arrows on it. That points back across the fairway for 5. So if we go back this way, sort of duck the rocks, and continue across the fairway. come right up through this, over this little dry creek. And here we have the tee pad for hole 6. Hole 6 is 448 feet long. There are no pars listed on the signs, however this should probably be a par 4 given the distance. It does open up a little bit after the hill. You are going to want to go a little bit to the left. I'll show you some video from the crest of that hill, and you can see the basket from there in the woods. Alright, so from the tee pad from 6, we're about just over a little crest off the hill, about 50 feet off the tee pad. If we turn around, just by those 2 entrance trees to the right of that rock, we can see where the basket is. So this is 446 yard. Par is not listed, but we will take a look at that in editing and see what UDisc says. Alright, so to get from the hole 6 basket to the hole 7 tee, all we have to do is turn to the right, and the hole 7 tee is right there in front of us. Hole 7 is a 302 foot par 3. It does move right to left. It does go slightly uphill. We are to the right of the tee a bit just because you can see the basket from here, kind of just over the bushes in the middle, and you can see what we can do from here. Just past the bridge at hole 7, we can turn around and look up towards the basket. I ended up short here, threw it not high enough, so I have a long second shot, but still easy for a possibility for a 3 from there. With our back to the basket at 7, we can look in the basket and see the arrow. It's actually pointed a little off in the wrong direction, but if we look right up here, follow this path, this takes us directly to the tee box for hole 8. Hole 8 is a 169 foot par 3. It is very, very, very much to the right. So being a right-hand forehand player, I can throw a super overstable disc and get it out there. If we see that big pine tree in front of us, the basket is about in line with that, but way right, probably in the direction of between the 2 large trees on the right side. Here we are at the base of that large pine tree I pointed out from the tree. You can see it's a little bit downhill. The crest of the hill that you can see off the tee is through that gap slightly to the left of center. And if we turn to the left here, just step out a little away from the tree, but there is the basket, probably another 50 to 60 feet away from that tree. So again, you really need to hook the tee shot to get it in there. So I had to drop in for 3 here after a 100-foot shot that cleaned off the basket. We're looking with the pine tree directly behind us. If we look in, the arrow in the basket is pointing directly back towards that pine tree. So we need to go back this way, right past the pine tree. There's the pine tree we've referenced on hole 8. Walk over this little bridge. Follow this little path here. And we get over here to the tee for hole 9. Hole 9 is a 376 foot par 3. We are just to the left of the tee sign, so about 10 feet to the left of the tee pad, because we can actually see the basket from here. If you look way up in the distance, and I'll point this out, we can see the basket tucked in amongst the brighter colored trees on the right side. So it's fairly long left to right. I think the idea here is just get it out there in the fairway, and kind of further left here is better to give you a clearer shot into the basket. Here we are next to the pine tree in the middle of the fairway that gives a better look at the basket between 2 brightly colored trees straight ahead of us. I ended up just to the right of here. Remember I said go to the left side of the fairway? That's not where I am, but I'm still in the fairway, so should be able to get at least a 4 from there. Moving on from the basket of 9 to the tee of 10, you can see here we have another arrow, which if we go up this steep little path just behind the basket, right at the top of this basket is the tee pad for hole 10. Hole 10 is a 279-foot par 3, significantly downhill. As you can see, we have these large barrels in the way. The basket is straight down that hill. If you look in the second barrel on the bottom from the left through that little gap above, you can't see it, but that is the direction of the basket you want to go. And again, it is significantly downhill. The basket is in the trees, so there's a gap behind there that you need to hit. This is a challenging little hole to get close to the basket on with your tee shot. Here we are looking through that gap in the barrel. There's the second barrel from the left, looking straight up, and we can see the basket directly in front of us through that barrel. Again, it's not too far into the woods. It does drop off significantly behind the basket, so if you're short, it is a bit of a death putt. All right, after having bounced off a whole bunch of trees to get a 4, we look in the basket here, we have another one of the arrows. And if we turn around and go back to our left, follow this little path, and then right in front of us we have the tee for hole 11. Okay. Hole 11 is a 371-foot par 3, uphill, dogleg to the right. It's not really a dogleg to the right, but way up by the basket, it curls to the right. If you see that bright tree that is lit up by the sunshine above the rocks, the basket is, I would say, about 25 to 30 feet to the right and behind of that. So again, the idea off the tee is just going to be straight up the middle, kind of where it looks like you should go, and hope you have a good putt through the trees. It does clear out a little bit after we get by that first large tree on the right. So you should have a reasonable shot at the basket on your second shot, at least to get close. Squirrel! Here we are next to that first tree on the right that I said it would clear out after. There's the bright tree that we can see from the tee. And from here we can see the basket just to the right of it. Maybe a little hard to see with the lighting, but I will point out exactly where it is in editing. After being inspired by the squirrel, my second shot out of the trees ended up with a better scramble than I possibly could have hoped for. So we have a drop in here for 3. Just take our 3. And from hole 11, if we turn to our right, there is a little path here. And we continue down the path. And here we are at the tee for hole 12. Hole 12 is a 353-foot par 3. We cannot see the basket from the tee. However, where the basket is, straight line, is just to the left of that V-shaped tree over where that small bush is. If you're actually standing up, this camera is about 4 feet off the ground. If it's about 7 feet off the ground, you can actually see it through the brush. If you're here in the spring before the leaves, you may be able to see it without that bush in the way. But if you step sort of into the fairway to the right, it's pretty easy to see going down the fairway as well. The idea here is, again, just sort of miss all the trees, get it as far down the fairway as you can, and hopefully have a clear second shot at the basket from where you end up. Here we are just to the right of the V-shaped tree. If we look to the top of the grassy knoll off in the distance, you can see the top of the basket just to the left of it. Where I ended up is up by that next cluster of trees on the left, so I'll have a reasonable shot at getting to the basket in 2 and maybe a shot at par from there. After my horrible second shot left me with no shot at 3, I ended up with a drop in for 4, so I'll take that. So we're looking back at in the direction of the tee. We can grab our disc out of the basket, and here we have another one of the arrows in the basket, pointing us back up the fairway. We do need to go a little bit left here. And if we go a little bit left, go through these trees, and here we end up at the tee for hole 13. All right, hole 13 is a 263-foot par 3, very, very heavily dogleg right. It's almost a U-turn. The tee shot, you kind of have to go straight ahead. We want to end up at the base of or to the right of that large tree that's leaning over. The basket is so far right that it is actually off camera to the right here. So even once we get up there, given where the fairway is, the basket is tucked even further right than it seems like it is. So although it's relatively short, there's no good way to get there, so it plays a lot longer than the 263 feet. Here we are at the base of the tree. You can see the basket in the middle of that cluster of 3 trees just behind. So I am just long and just left of this tree, which is a good place to be. It is a bit of a death shot from here, as the ground does go downhill pretty steeply behind and to the right of the basket from here. So just kind of do what you can do. If you can get a 3 here, you're doing pretty well. To get from the 13 basket up to hole 14, if you'll see, there's one of these nice little arrows pointing back up the hill, and directly across from where we came, sort of across the back of the fairway of 13, is a bench, and just on the other side of that is the tee for hole 14. Hole 14 is a 295-foot par 3 dogleg right. There's a dirt path across the fairway. The hole is tucked back on the right side of that dirt path, and there is out of bounds marked by white stakes on the left edge of the fairway. There we are looking back at the tee from the little crest of this hill, and you can see that dirt path there. That is where you want to go. I will say there is out of bounds on the left here as well, marked by wooden stakes. It shouldn't come into play, but they are there, so you don't want to be left in this fairway. I ended up way off to the right, so I'm in a completely different situation. Once we get to the crest of this next little hill, you can see the pin tucked away back in that little wooded area on the right. All right, with the tee behind us, having dropped in for 4, we can follow this little path. We don't want to follow the big main path, we want to follow this little side path, and this will take us right up to the tee for hole 15. Hole 15 is a 245-foot par 3, going from right to left. You see that tree straight in front of you. You need to go way down and to the left of where that tree is. The basket is sort of on the left edge of the brush. If you follow a line from the camera shot to the edge of the brush, going downhill, it's even a little bit further to the left than that. So this is a big right to left mover, but it does play shorter because it is significantly downhill. Here we are at the top of the hill. So from here, you have these logs to clear, but it is pretty significantly downhill. The basket is in a little bit of a basin. There's also a pond over there to the left, which that shouldn't be in play, but if you go way left and miss, it will be. I'm about halfway between these logs and the tree at the bottom of the basin, so I've at least got a very good shot at 3 from here. Here we are at the backside of 15, looking back up to the top of the hill that we took the last video for. To get to tee for hole 16, you go a little bit to the right here and walk back up the 15 fairway, and right over here we end up on the 16 tee box right up here. Hole 16, 191-foot par 3, dead straight ahead. Finally one where we can sort of see where we're going pretty easily off the tee. And not a whole lot to this one. You have some trees to miss, but at least it's pretty clear where you're going from here. Looking back at the tee for 16, here in the basket we have a nice little arrow, points us over in this direction. Follow the arrow. And if we go through this little path here, we end up at the tee for hole 17. Hole 17 is a 253-foot par 3 uphill. You can't see the basket from here, but if you're standing on the tee, it is kind of through the bushes to the left, up and back to the left of that V-shaped tree. So the play is to kind of go from right to left up the hill. One thing to note is that now in September it's not an issue, but there is a pond to the right and at the bottom of that hill, so it is possible to end up wet if you're playing here in the spring. All right, here we are looking back at the tee of 17. We're about 2/3 the way up the hill. There is, I believe, hole 2 tee. If we spin around, there's actually an out of bounds rope here, sort of off this cliff, so you don't want to be left, way left up top. My guess is that there's also out of bounds sort of lining the top of this, but it does go pretty far back, so as long as you have your direction correct, then you should be okay for not having to worry about out of bounds. We took our 3 on 17, so with our back to the tee, we go from the 17 basket, take a right, and go just up over the crest of this hill here. And over here is the tee for hole 18. Hole 18 is a 125-foot par 3, over a crest, blind, and very steeply downhill after the crest. The hole is guarded by trees. There'll be a video from the top of the crest here, but you kind of need to go through that central gap and then move the disc back from the left to the right. Kind of that large tree in the distance that's between the two nearer trees, that's kind of the target of what you want to go for. But it is a raised pin and heavily guarded by trees. So at the crest of this little hill from 18, there is the tee. We can spin around and we can see the basket. The basket's an elevated basket that is surrounded by trees. If you can make it through there, you're good, but the key is you basically just need to clear this first hump and get over it. I am standing a little bit to the left of the straight line between the tee and the basket, so my guess is that tree is right in the way. So the hole 18 basket spits you out right across from this trash can and a little shack here that we started hole 1 with. And if you want to play another round, there's the tee for hole 1, or if you want to exit back to the parking lot, it is follow the road and back to where you parked.
That was Birch Park with the long baskets. Here's some of my thoughts on the course in general. The thumbnail hole, hole 10. This is definitely a unique shot that you won't see anywhere else. It's a unique feature I haven't seen anywhere else before. Yes, it is gimmicky. However, between that and the tires on 3 don't really come into play that much. Those are really the only 2 artificial items on the course, so it's okay to get away with it there. So it's not overdone. My favorite hole, 15. It requires a uniquely shaped, accurate shot, but it's not overly long, and it rewards a good shot for my noodle arm on a par 3. Honorable mention, hole 17 as well, kind of the same idea. The first hole is a good starting hole. It gives you a good idea of what to expect from the rest of the course. Unfortunately, that includes the difficulty of trying to figure out how to get to the tee of hole 2 after you've finished hole 1. 18 is a bit gimmicky, but in a natural and not overly difficult manner. It doesn't leave a bad final impression. And now for my rant section of the video. My least favorite hole is hole 5. This is the epitome of everything I don't like about this course on one single hole. There's a misleading tee sign to a hidden basket in a non-obvious location, and you're left with a vague general direction to get to the next tee with no real direction from there. This leads me to my single biggest gripe with this course in general, which is navigation. The T signs need more detail than what they have, and in some places, more signage to get to the next tee would be helpful. I felt at times like I was in a corn maze. Not sure if I'm going in the right way. I may take wrong turns. I'm tempted to stop following and take the most direct route to the end, even if there's no intended path to get there and I have to just kind of go straight through the maze. I had issues with navigation on holes 2, 5, 8, 11, 13, 14, 15, the out of bounds on 17, and hole 18. That's way too many holes to have problems of figuring out where the course goes or where you're supposed to go. On the other hand, the course is relatively safe for discs. I never felt in any imminent danger of losing a disc, and only the tee shot on 13 felt like I needed to have a super accurate shot or it would be hard to find if it went into the woods on a particularly errant shot. The tee pad and basket quality was very good, no complaints there. My final rating for the course, 45-minute drive, if I hadn't played it before, is what I feel like I would take to go there. It's decent, but there are other courses that I'd prefer to play, kind of surrounded on all sides. Unfortunately, it is a pretty mature course, and I don't see a whole lot of room to make significant changes or improvements to the course because of where the property is and some of the borders that they have with neighbors or Route 101. The big issue that I have with Birch Park is that it's surrounded by better courses. WLC Disc Golf Course in Wilton and the Hollows in Manchester are both about 15 minutes away in opposite directions. So unless you live within about 5 miles of Birch Park, I'd say one of those two is going to be a better option. Also, much like Absolute Zero, Birch Park is just okay. Like, share, and subscribe to help me get to my goal of 1,000 subscribers. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.